Hey everyone, tonight we begin with something fascinating and complex, the bustling, organized worlds of insect societies. From towering termite cathedrals to underground ant empires, these tiny creatures have built civilizations that would make human engineers weep with envy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. You're walking through a forest when you stumble across what looks like a massive earthen skyscraper, sometimes reaching 20 feet into the air. No human architect designed this, no construction crew built it. Instead, millions of tiny insects, each no bigger than a grain of rice, worked together to create something that defies everything we thought we knew about intelligence, cooperation, and social organization. Welcome to the world of insect societies, places where individuals sacrifice everything for the collective, where complex decisions emerge from simple rules, and where order arises from what appears to be absolute chaos. These aren't just bug colonies, they're functioning civilizations that have been perfecting their systems for over 100 million years. They've mastered agriculture, architecture, warfare, and communication in ways that would make our greatest leaders jealous. But here's what's truly remarkable. None of them went to school. None of them read management books or attended leadership seminars. They don't have governments, presidents, or CEOs. Yet somehow, they've created societies so efficient, so perfectly organized, that scientists spend entire careers trying to understand how they work. Tonight, we're diving deep into these microscopic metropolises. We'll explore the underground cities of leafcutter ants that stretch for miles, the perfectly climate-controlled towers of termites that put our best air conditioning systems to shame, and the democratic decision-making processes of honeybee colonies that would make political scientists weep with admiration. These societies operate on principles that seem almost alien to us. Individual identity means nothing. Personal ambition doesn't exist. Everything, and I mean everything, is sacrificed for the good of the colony. Workers will literally work themselves to death. Soldiers will fight until their last breath. Even reproduction is controlled by the collective, with only a select few allowed to pass on their genes. But don't mistake this for mindless obedience. These insects are constantly making complex decisions. They're solving problems, adapting to challenges, and innovating solutions to threats we can barely comprehend. They're running cities of millions without traffic jams, managing food supplies without waste, and coordinating massive construction projects without a single blueprint. The more we study these societies, the more we realize how much we have to learn from them. Their methods of organization, their approaches to problem solving, their systems of communication, all of it offers insights into cooperation, efficiency, and collective intelligence that could revolutionize how we think about everything from urban planning to artificial intelligence. So tonight, prepare yourself for a journey into worlds where the impossible becomes routine, where tiny minds combine to create vast intelligence, and where the very concepts of self and society take on meanings we're only beginning to understand. These are the hidden empires that exist right beneath our feet, in the walls of our homes, and in the trees above our heads. Societies so ancient, so successful, and so perfectly organized that they make our human civilizations look like amateur experiments in social organization. The age of insects began long before humans ever walked the earth, and their societies have been thriving while empires rose and fell around them. Tonight, we step into their world and discover what true order really looks like in these tiny, perfect worlds. As we delve deeper into these miniature metropolises, we discover that the most remarkable aspect isn't just their architecture, but their decision-making processes. Take a moment to consider this. In a colony of 50,000 honeybees, there's no boardroom, no CEO barking orders, no committee meetings that drag on for hours. Yet somehow, these societies make decisions with a precision and efficiency that would make Fortune 500 companies weep with envy. Let's start with the scouts. In the bee world, when the colony needs a new home, specialized worker bees venture out into the unknown. These aren't random wanderers hoping to stumble upon something decent. They're methodical, systematic, almost scientific in their approach. A scout bee will spend hours examining a potential site, measuring the volume with her body, checking for drafts, assessing the entrance size, even testing the structural integrity of the walls. She's essentially conducting a full property inspection, but without a clipboard or a college degree. Here's where it gets fascinating. When she returns to the hive, she doesn't just announce her findings. She performs what scientists call the waggle dance, a figure-8 movement that communicates distance, direction, and quality of the site. But here's the kicker. She's not the only one reporting back. Dozens of other scouts are simultaneously performing their own dances, each advocating for different locations. What happens next is pure democracy in action. Other bees observe these performances, and if they're convinced by a particular dance, they'll fly out to inspect that site themselves. If they're impressed, they return and dance for the same location, amplifying its signal. Sites that don't measure up gradually lose their advocates, while superior locations gain momentum. It's like a real estate market, where properties literally compete through interpretive dance. The process continues until a consensus emerges, but not through voting or debate. Instead, it's through this organic amplification of quality information. The best site naturally accumulates the most supporters, and when a critical threshold is reached, the entire colony commits to the decision. No campaign promises, no backroom deals, just pure evidence-based collective intelligence. This same principle operates in their daily foraging decisions. When a worker bee discovers a rich patch of flowers, she doesn't hoard the information. She returns to the hive and recruits others through her dance, sharing the exact location and quality of the food source. But here's the elegant part. If the patch starts to become depleted, fewer bees return with full stomachs, fewer dances are performed, and the colony's attention naturally shifts to more productive areas. It's supply and demand economics, but with wings. Ant colonies take this decentralized decision-making even further. When leafcutter ants need to establish a new foraging trail, individual ants explore randomly in all directions, laying down chemical trails as they go. Most of these trails lead nowhere and quickly evaporate. But when an ant discovers a valuable food source, she returns along her original path, reinforcing the chemical trail with more pheromones. Other ants detecting this stronger scent are more likely to follow that particular route. If they too find food, they add their own chemical signatures to the trail. Soon, what started as a faint suggestion becomes a highway of scent, clearly marking the most efficient path to resources. Meanwhile, unsuccessful trails fade away naturally, leaving only the optimal routes. It's like having a GPS system that updates itself in real time based on traffic conditions, except it's been operating for millions of years. But perhaps the most mind-bending aspect of insect decision-making is how they handle complex problems that would stump human engineers. Consider the challenge of temperature regulation in a beehive. The optimal temperature for developing larvae is incredibly precise, around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Too hot, and the young die. Too cold, and their development slows to a crawl. On a scorching summer day, worker bees position themselves throughout the hive and begin fanning their wings in coordinated waves, creating air currents that cool the interior. But they don't all fan at the same rate or in the same direction. Bees near the entrance fan differently than those deep inside the hive, creating complex air circulation patterns that maintain temperature gradients exactly where they're needed. When winter arrives, the strategy shifts completely. Bees cluster together in a tight ball, with the youngest and most vulnerable members at the center. The outer layer of bees generates heat by rapidly contracting their flight muscles without moving their wings, essentially shivering. But here's the remarkable part. They rotate positions regularly, so no individual bee bears the burden of being on the cold exterior for too long. It's like a living thermostat that adjusts itself automatically while ensuring fairness for all participants. Termites have perhaps perfected this climate control system to an even greater degree. Their mounds aren't just impressive structures, they're sophisticated air conditioning systems. The shape and internal architecture of these towers create natural convection currents that regulate temperature and humidity with stunning precision. Fresh air enters through the base, circulates through the fungus gardens where the termites cultivate their food, and exits through the top, carrying away excess heat and carbon dioxide. Some termite species even adjust their building behavior based on environmental conditions. During the rainy season, they'll add new ventilation shafts to prevent flooding. In dry periods, they might seal certain openings to conserve moisture. They're essentially renovating their cities in real time, responding to changing conditions without architects, permits, or planning committees. What emerges from all these examples is a profound truth about intelligence itself. These insects have solved complex logistical, architectural, and social challenges not through individual genius, but through collective wisdom. Each individual follows simple rules, responds to local conditions, and communicates through basic signals. Yet somehow, from this simplicity emerges sophisticated behavior that rivals anything human civilization has achieved. The implications are staggering. While we struggle with traffic congestion, these societies have mastered flow optimization. While our cities grapple with resource distribution, ant colonies have perfected supply chain management. While human organizations often suffer from communication breakdowns and bureaucratic inefficiency, insect societies maintain perfect coordination across thousands of individuals. Perhaps most humbling of all is the realization that these achievements required no central planning, no hierarchy, no management consultants. The intelligence is distributed, emergent, and remarkably robust. Remove any individual from the system, and it continues functioning seamlessly. The wisdom lies not in any single mind, but in the connections between minds, in the simple rules that govern interaction, and in the collective commitment to the common good. As we continue our exploration of these tiny worlds, we'll discover that the lessons they offer extend far beyond biology. They provide blueprints for organization, templates for cooperation, and perhaps most importantly, proof that intelligence comes in forms we're only beginning to understand. Beneath the ancient pyramids and temples that pierce the desert sky, a hidden world thrives in perfect harmony. While human civilizations rise and fall with the weight of ambition and conflict, insect societies have mastered something far more remarkable: the art of collective intelligence. Today, we're descending into the microscopic metropolises that surround us, where millions of tiny architects, engineers, and organizers work together to create some of the most sophisticated systems on Earth. In the dim corridors of an ant colony, there are no boardrooms, no CEO giving orders, no hierarchical meetings. Yet somehow, these societies achieve feats of coordination that would make our most advanced corporations as envious. A single honeybee colony can house 60,000 individuals, each one contributing to a complex economy of nectar collection, wax production, climate control, and defense. Termite mounds stretch stories into the sky, their interiors precisely climate controlled through ingenious ventilation systems that human engineers are only now beginning to understand. What we're witnessing here isn't chaos, it's emergence, the phenomenon where simple rules, followed by individuals, create complex, intelligent behavior at the group level. No single ant understands the blueprint of the nest. No termite grasps the architectural principles behind their towering cathedrals. Yet collectively, they build, organize, and adapt with a precision that seems almost supernatural. Consider the honeybee's waggle dance, a form of communication so sophisticated it would impress any linguist. When a scout bee discovers a rich patch of flowers, she returns to the hive and performs an intricate dance on the comb. The angle of her dance relative to vertical indicates the direction of the food source relative to the sun. The duration of her waggle run communicates the distance. The intensity of her movements conveys the quality of the nectar. In just a few minutes of dancing, she's transmitted GPS coordinates, a quality rating, and a distance measurement to hundreds of her sisters. But here's where it gets truly remarkable. The colony doesn't just accept this information blindly. Other bees evaluate the dancer's enthusiasm, cross-reference her data with their own knowledge, and make collective decisions about where to focus the colony's foraging efforts. It's democracy in action, but without the politics. The best food sources win not through lobbying or influence, but through the pure mathematics of collective decision-making. Underground, ant colonies are performing equally stunning feats of organization. Follow a trail of leafcutter ants, and you'll witness one of nature's most complex agricultural systems. These ants don't eat the leaves they cut. Instead, they carry them back to underground gardens, where they cultivate fungus, their primary food source. Different castes of ants specialize in different aspects of this agricultural process. Some cut the leaves with their razor-sharp mandibles. Others carry the fragments back to the nest. Still others tend the fungus gardens, maintaining optimal temperature and humidity, weeding out harmful bacteria and harvesting the crop. The fungus gardens themselves are marvels of biological engineering. The ants create compost from the leaf fragments, inoculate it with fungal spores, and maintain growing conditions so precise that the fungus found in their gardens exists nowhere else in nature. They've essentially domesticated their food source through millions of years of coevolution, creating an agricultural system more sophisticated than many human farming operations. What's perhaps most fascinating is how these societies handle information flow. In an ant colony, there's no central command center, no queen issuing detailed instructions. Instead, information travels through the colony via chemical signals called pheromones. When a worker ant finds food, she lays down a pheromone trail on her way back to the nest. Other ants detect this chemical signal and follow it, adding their own pheromones to strengthen the trail. The more ants that use a particular route, the stronger the chemical signal becomes, creating a positive feedback loop that ensures the most efficient paths get the most traffic. But the system is even more elegant than that. Pheromones evaporate over time, so unused trails naturally fade away. If a food source becomes depleted or a path becomes blocked, the chemical highway automatically dissolves, redirecting traffic to more productive routes. It's a self-organizing transportation network that adapts in real time to changing conditions, something human traffic engineers can only dream of achieving. Termites take architectural sophistication to another level entirely. Their mounds, which can tower 20 feet above ground, are essentially skyscrapers with their own climate control systems. Inside these structures, temperature and humidity are maintained within incredibly narrow ranges, creating optimal conditions for the colony's fungus gardens and brood chambers. But there's no central air conditioning system. Instead, the entire mound functions as a passive ventilation system, using the principles of thermodynamics to create air currents that circulate fresh air throughout the structure. The design is ingenious. Hot air rises from the colony's living chambers through a central chimney. As this warm air reaches the top of the mound, it cools and becomes denser, sinking down through a network of peripheral channels. This creates a continuous circulation of air that brings in oxygen and removes carbon dioxide, all without any mechanical pumps or fans. Human architects are now studying these termite mounds to design more energy-efficient buildings, learning from engineers that weigh less than a paperclip. In the vast darkness of our ancient oceans, where light has never touched and pressure would crush a human instantly, thrives one of nature's most extraordinary societies. These are the societies of the deep-sea creatures, civilizations built not on dry land, but in the crushing depths where survival demands cooperation on a scale that would put human cities to shame. Tonight, we dive into these alien worlds where creatures have evolved social structures so complex and efficient that they make our most advanced urban planning look primitive by comparison. So before you settle in for this journey into the abyss, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this: 3 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, where the pressure is 800 times greater Then at sea level, and the temperature hovers just above freezing, entire cities sprawl across the ocean floor. These aren't human settlements, but communities of creatures so specialized and interdependent that they make our most sophisticated societies look like scattered tribes. Here, in the Midnight Zone, where no sunlight has ever penetrated, deep-sea creatures have built civilizations that operate with a precision that would make Swiss clockmakers weep with envy. They've mastered urban planning, waste management, territorial defense, and resource distribution in ways that human engineers are only beginning to understand. But what makes these societies truly remarkable isn't their organization, it's how they've solved problems that continue to plague human civilization. Traffic flow, resource scarcity, territorial disputes, efficient communication networks. The creatures of the deep solved these challenges millions of years before humans even existed. Consider the vampire squid colonies of the abyssal plains. These ancient creatures, living fossils that have remained virtually unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, have developed a social structure so elegant that marine biologists are still unraveling its mysteries. Each colony operates as a single, breathing organism, with individual squids taking on specialized roles that would make a medieval guild system look chaotic. The juveniles serve as scouts, their bioluminescent displays creating a communication network that spans miles of ocean floor. The adults manage resource distribution, ensuring that the scarce nutrients that drift down from the surface world are allocated with mathematical precision. And the elders, their bodies pulsing with ancient wisdom encoded in light patterns, serve as living libraries, storing and transmitting knowledge that has kept their species thriving when countless others have vanished into extinction. But vampire squid colonies are just the beginning. In the thermal vent cities scattered along the mid-ocean ridges, where superheated water, rich in minerals, erupts from the Earth's core, entire ecosystems have evolved around cooperation that makes human international relations look like playground squabbles. Those underwater oases, islands of life in the vast desert of the deep ocean, host societies of tube worms, crabs, and bacteria that have achieved something humans still struggle with: true sustainability. For millions of years, these communities have thrived without depleting their resources, without generating waste that poisons their environment, and without the territorial conflicts that have defined human history. The giant tube worms that form the backbone of these thermal vent cities have no mouths, no stomachs, no digestive systems as we understand them. Instead, they've evolved a partnership with bacteria so intimate that the line between individual organism and society becomes meaningless. The bacteria live within specialized organs in the worms' bodies, converting the toxic chemicals spewing from the vents into food. In return, the worms provide shelter and nutrients, creating a closed-loop system of such efficiency that it makes our most advanced recycling programs look wasteful. But it's not just the symbiosis that's remarkable, it's the architecture. Thus, thermal vent cities are marvels of engineering, with the tube worms arranging themselves in patterns that maximize the flow of nutrient-rich water while providing protection from predators. The larger worms form protective barriers, creating safe zones where smaller creatures can feed and reproduce. The arrangement isn't random. It's deliberate, purposeful, designed with an intelligence that speaks to millions of years of evolutionary refinement. And then there are the communication networks. Deep sea creatures have solved the problem of long distance communication in an environment where sound travels differently and light is either non existent or artificially created. They've developed bioluminescent languages so sophisticated that researchers are only beginning to decode their complexity. The deep sea anglerfish, those nightmarish predators with their glowing lures, don't just use their lights to hunt. They use them to communicate across vast distances, sending messages that coordinate hunting strategies, territorial boundaries, and mating behaviors. Each species has its own distinct light patterns, its own dialect in the universal language of bioluminescence. Some anglerfish have evolved communication systems so advanced that they can transmit information about prey movements, water temperature changes, and even warnings about approaching threats across miles of ocean. They've created an early warning system that would make our most sophisticated military intelligence networks envious. But perhaps the most remarkable deep-sea society belongs to the giant Pacific octopus communities of the abyssal canyons. These creatures, with their 8 arms and problem-solving intelligence that rivals that of dolphins, have developed social structures that challenge everything we thought we knew about octopus behavior. For decades, scientists believed octopuses were solitary creatures, living alone and interacting with others only to mate. But recent discoveries in the deep ocean have revealed octopus cities, communities where dozens of these intelligent creatures live together in carefully constructed neighborhoods. These octopus settlements, built around rocky outcroppings and underwater cliffs, feature individual dens connected by a network of tunnels and communication pathways. Each octopus maintains its own territory, but the boundaries are fluid, negotiated through complex displays of color and movement that serve as a sophisticated form of diplomacy. The remarkable thing about these octopus cities isn't just their existence, it's how they're governed. There's no central authority, no octopus king or queen ruling from above. Instead, decisions are made collectively through a form of democracy that operates through color changes and tentacle movements. When threats appear, the entire community responds as one. When resources become scarce, they're shared according to need rather than strength. Young octopuses in these communities don't just learn to hunt and hide. They're educated by the elders, taught the color languages and tentacle signals that allow them to participate in the complex social negotiations that keep their society functioning. It's a form of cultural transmission that rivals anything found in human societies, and their problem-solving abilities, when combined with their social cooperation, produce results that seem almost magical. Octopus communities have been observed working together to move objects hundreds of times heavier than any individual could manage alone. They coordinate their efforts through rapid-fire color communications, their skin flashing instructions and responses faster than human eyes can follow. But what truly sets these deep-sea societies apart from their surface-dwelling counterparts isn't their intelligence or their cooperation, it's their resilience. These communities have survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and mass extinctions that wiped out countless other species. They've endured in an environment so hostile that it would kill most surface creatures in seconds. They've achieved this remarkable survival record, not through individual strength, but through the power of their collective intelligence. When resources disappear in one area, the entire community migrates together. When new threats emerge, they adapt their behaviors collectively, sharing solutions across the entire population faster than genetic evolution could provide them. The deep-sea glass sponge reefs of the Pacific Northwest represent perhaps the ultimate expression of this collective intelligence. These ancient creatures, some of which have been alive for thousands of years, form reef systems that stretch for miles across the ocean floor. Each sponge is both an individual organism and a component in a larger superorganism that filters billions of gallons of seawater, cleaning the ocean and providing habitat for countless other species. These sponge cities operate on a timescale that makes human civilization look like a brief flicker. Individual sponges can live for millennia, slowly growing and expanding their reef systems generation after generation. They communicate through chemical signals, coordinating their growth patterns to create the most efficient filtering systems possible. The architecture of these sponge reefs is so complex that marine engineers study them to understand how to build more efficient water treatment facilities. The sponges arrange themselves in patterns that maximize water flow while minimizing energy expenditure, creating structures that are both beautiful and functional. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of these deep-sea societies isn't their efficiency or their resilience, it's their mystery. Despite decades of research and exploration, we've barely scratched the surface of understanding how these communities operate. Every deep-sea expedition reveals new species, new behaviors, new forms of cooperation that challenge our assumptions about life on Earth. The creatures of the deep have evolved solutions to problems we're still struggling to solve. They've achieved sustainable resource management, efficient waste disposal, conflict resolution, and cooperative decision-making in environments that would challenge our most advanced technologies. Their societies operate without currency, without law enforcement, without government bureaucracy, yet they maintain order and cooperation across vast distances and long periods of time. They've achieved what human societies have been striving for throughout history: true harmony between individual needs and collective welfare. As we continue to explore these alien worlds beneath our own planet's surface, we're discovering that the principles governing these deep-sea societies might hold keys to solving some of humanity's most pressing challenges. Their approaches to resource distribution, their methods of conflict resolution, their techniques for maintaining social cohesion across diverse populations all offer insights that could transform how we organize our own societies. The next time you look out at the ocean's surface, remember that beneath those waves lie civilizations more ancient than any human empire, more sophisticated than any city we've ever built, more resilient than any society we've ever known. These creatures of the deep have mastered the art of living together in ways that we're only beginning to understand. In the crushing darkness of the ocean's depths, where pressure and cold would instantly destroy human life, thrives a wisdom about cooperation and community that has endured for millions of years. These societies of the deep remind us that intelligence and cooperation aren't uniquely human traits. They're fundamental principles of life itself, expressed in forms more beautiful and complex than we ever imagined possible. And perhaps most remarkably, they continue to evolve, to adapt, to teach us new lessons about what it means to build a society that can endure not just for decades or centuries, but for geological ages. In the endless darkness of the deep, these ancient communities continue to shine with a light that illuminates not just the ocean floor, but the very possibilities of civilization itself. In the depths of the world's most extreme environments, where crushing pressure and eternal darkness would seem to make complex society impossible, some of nature's most sophisticated civilizations thrive. While insect societies have long captured our attention with their remarkable organization, there exists an entire universe of social complexity hidden beneath thousands of feet of ocean water, where creatures have evolved forms of cooperation and communication that rival anything found on land. Tonight, we journey into these abyssal communities, where vampire squid form intricate colonies in the oxygen-depleted depths, their bioluminescent displays creating underwater cities of light. Here, thermal vent ecosystems burst with collaborative networks more complex than any metropolis, where tube worms, bacteria, and countless other species have forged partnerships that sustain life in conditions that would instantly kill most surface dwellers. These aren't random gatherings of creatures simply trying to survive. These are organized societies with their own forms of governance, communication systems, and resource management strategies that have been refined over millions of years. In the perpetual night of the deep ocean, where food is scarce and the environment is unforgiving, cooperation isn't just advantageous, it's essential for survival. What we're discovering challenges everything we thought we knew about where complex societies can emerge. While land-based civilizations depend on sunlight and relatively stable conditions, these deep-sea communities have built their entire social structures around chemosynthesis, thermal energy, and forms of communication that exist nowhere else on Earth. Consider the vampire squid colonies found in the oxygen minimum zones of our oceans. These creatures, despite their ominous name, are actually sophisticated social architects. They coordinate their movements through complex patterns of bioluminescence, creating what marine biologists describe as underwater ballets of light. Each flash, each pulse, each coordinated display serves a specific purpose in maintaining the colony's social structure. Their communication system operates on multiple frequencies of light, allowing for layered conversations that can occur simultaneously without interference. Urgent warnings about predators might flash in rapid blue pulses, while slower, amber waves coordinate feeding patterns across vast distances. Most remarkably, they've developed what appears to be a form of collective memory, where successful survival strategies are encoded in light patterns and passed down through generations. But perhaps even more impressive are their resource management systems. In an environment where food particles drift down like rare snow from the surface world above, vampire squid have evolved sophisticated sharing networks. Scouts identify food sources and communicate their locations through precise light coordinates, while the colony organizes itself into efficient collection and distribution systems that ensure no individual goes without sustenance. The thermal vent ecosystems represent another pinnacle of deep-sea social evolution. These underwater oases, powered by the Earth's internal heat, support communities so complex that scientists are still discovering new forms of cooperation within them. At the heart of these societies are the giant tube worms, creating forests of living architecture that provide structure for entire ecosystems. These tube worms don't just coexist, they actively cultivate their environment. Through their relationship with chemosynthetic bacteria, they transform toxic chemicals into life-sustaining nutrients, creating abundance in one of Earth's most challenging environments. But their true genius lies in how they've organized this process socially. Different areas of the tube worm colonies specialize in different functions. Some sections focus on processing sulfur compounds, others on filtering nutrients from the water column, and still others on providing nursery areas for the community's young. This division of labor creates efficiency levels that rival the most sophisticated insect societies, yet it evolved independently in an environment that couldn't be more different from terrestrial ecosystems. The thermal vent communities also demonstrate remarkable forms of emergency response and collective resilience. When volcanic activity threatens to destroy their habitat, these societies don't simply scatter. Instead, they engage in coordinated relocation efforts that involve multiple species working together to establish new colonies in safer areas. Marine biologists have documented these migration events and found them to be highly organized affairs. Scout species venture out to identify suitable new locations, while other community members begin the careful process of preserving essential biological materials. Bacterial cultures are protected and transported. Reproductive individuals are given priority in the evacuation, and the entire community maintains communication networks that span the gap between their old and new homes. Perhaps most fascinating are the deep-sea sponge reefs, which create some of the ocean's most enduring social structures. These communities build massive underwater cities that can persist for thousands of years, growing slowly but steadily through collective effort. Each sponge in the reef contributes to the overall architecture while also maintaining its own specialized function within the larger community. The sponge cities demonstrate sophisticated urban planning principles. Water flow patterns are carefully managed to ensure optimal distribution of nutrients and oxygen throughout the structure. Waste processing is handled through complex filtration systems that prevent the accumulation of toxins. And the reef actively maintains and repairs itself, with damaged sections being rebuilt through coordinated community effort. What makes these sponge societies particularly remarkable is their approach to expansion and growth. Rather than competing for space, they engage in careful negotiation processes that allow for sustainable development. New additions to the reef are planned and constructed in ways that benefit the entire community, creating three-dimensional cities that can house millions of individual organisms while maintaining the delicate balance necessary for long-term survival. The octopus cities, discovered in recent years, represent perhaps the most intriguing development in our understanding of deep-sea societies. These highly intelligent creatures, traditionally thought to be solitary, have been found living in complex communities that challenge our assumptions about cephalopod behavior. These octopus settlements feature sophisticated territorial arrangements, with individual densensites organized around communal areas, used for social interaction, mating displays, and what appears to be information exchange. The octopi have developed elaborate signaling systems using both color changes and body postures to maintain social order and coordinate community activities. Most surprisingly, These communities demonstrate clear evidence of cultural transmission. Younger octopi learn hunting techniques, den construction methods, and social protocols from their elders through observation and practice. This cultural continuity allows the communities to accumulate knowledge and improve their survival strategies over time, creating a form of technological advancement that occurs entirely underwater. The deep sea societies also reveal remarkable innovations in conflict resolution and resource management. In environments where resources are limited and cooperation is essential, these communities have evolved sophisticated methods for preventing and resolving disputes. Vampire squid colonies use ritualized light displays to establish dominance hierarchies without resorting to physical violence. These displays allow individuals to communicate their status and capabilities while giving others the opportunity to defer or challenge appropriately. The result is a social order that minimizes energy expenditure while maintaining stability. Thermal vent communities employ resource-sharing agreements that prevent overexploitation of their limited habitat. Different species take turns accessing the most productive areas, with timing coordinated through chemical and bioelectric signals. This rotation system ensures that all community members have access to essential resources while preventing the kind of competition that could destabilize the entire ecosystem. The communication systems employed by deep-sea societies are particularly sophisticated, utilizing methods of information transfer that have no equivalent in terrestrial environments. Bioluminescence serves not just as a light source, but as a complex language capable of conveying detailed information across vast distances. These light-based communication networks operate on principles similar to fiber optic technology, with different wavelengths carrying different types of information. Emergency signals use specific frequencies that can penetrate further through the water column, while routine social communications employ gentler patterns that conserve energy. Some deep-sea communities have developed what can only be described as information highways, networks of light signals that allow for rapid communication across entire regions of the ocean floor. These networks enable communities to share information about food sources, predator movements, and environmental changes, creating a form of collective intelligence that enhances survival for all participants. The chemical communication systems are equally impressive. Deep-sea creatures have evolved the ability to produce and detect incredibly subtle chemical signatures that can convey complex social information. These chemical messages can indicate everything from reproductive status to territorial boundaries to warnings about environmental hazards. What's particularly remarkable is how these chemical signals are designed to persist in the deep sea environment. Unlike terrestrial chemical communications, which can be disrupted by wind and weather, deep sea chemical signals are engineered to maintain their integrity in the stable but challenging conditions of the deep ocean. The architectural achievements of deep-sea societies rival anything built by surface-dwelling species. The structures created by these communities serve multiple functions simultaneously, providing shelter, facilitating communication, enabling resource processing, and creating the complex three-dimensional environments necessary for sophisticated social organization. The engineering principles underlying these constructions demonstrate remarkable understanding of fluid dynamics, structural integrity, and environmental integration. Deep-sea architects must account for crushing pressure, corrosive chemicals, and the constant threat of geological instability, yet they create structures that can endure for millennia. These underwater cities also demonstrate sophisticated approaches to expansion and modification. As communities grow and their needs change, the structures are renovated and expanded through collective effort. The planning involved in these construction projects requires levels of coordination and foresight that speak to the advanced cognitive capabilities of these societies. The sustainability practices of deep-sea communities offer important lessons for understanding how complex societies can thrive in resource-limited environments. These communities have achieved something that many surface civilizations struggle with: long-term stability that doesn't compromise the environment that sustains them. Their approach to waste management is particularly instructive. Nothing is discarded in these communities. Instead, waste products from one process become raw materials for another. This circular approach to resource utilization creates closed-loop systems that can operate indefinitely without depleting their environment. The energy management strategies employed by deep-sea societies are equally impressive. These communities have learned to harness and distribute energies from sources that would be unusable to most other forms of life. Thermal energy from volcanic vents, chemical energy from toxic compounds, and even the mechanical energy of ocean currents are all captured and utilized through sophisticated biological technologies. Perhaps most importantly, these deep-sea societies demonstrate that intelligence and cooperation can emerge in forms radically different from anything we see on land. Their solutions to the challenges of social organization, communication, and environmental management have evolved independently from terrestrial societies, yet they achieve comparable levels of complexity and sophistication. The timescales on which these societies operate also offer unique perspectives on social organization. While many surface societies focus on immediate needs and short-term planning, deep-sea communities think in terms of centuries and millennia. Their long-term perspective allows them to make decisions and investments that may not pay off for generations, but which ensure the continued survival and prosperity of their communities. As we continue to explore these hidden civilizations, we're discovering that the deep ocean contains some of the most sophisticated and successful societies on our planet. These communities have solved problems that continue to challenge human civilization, from sustainable resource management to peaceful conflict resolution to long-term environmental stewardship. The study of deep-sea societies is still in its infancy, but what we've learned so far suggests that the principles underlying successful social organization may be more universal than we previously imagined. Whether in the crushing depths of the ocean or the familiar environments of land, the fundamental challenges of cooperation, communication, and resource management require similar solutions. These underwater civilizations remind us that intelligence and social sophistication can emerge wherever life takes hold, adapting to local conditions while addressing universal needs. In the eternal darkness of the deep sea, surrounded by crushing pressure and toxic chemicals, some of nature's most remarkable societies continue to thrive, offering us new models for understanding cooperation, sustainability, and the endless creativity of life itself. Their existence expands our definition of what constitutes a civilization and challenges us to recognize intelligence and social organization in forms we're only beginning to understand. In the depths of our oceans, entire worlds of cooperation and complexity continue to evolve, creating societies that may be more advanced and sustainable than any we've achieved on land. Delving deeper into the social fabric of insect societies and deep-sea communities reveals something remarkable: how complex communication networks emerge from the simplest building blocks of interaction. When thousands or millions of individuals must coordinate their activities without central authority, the result is often more sophisticated than any human-designed system. Consider the language of touch and vibration that permeates these societies. Honeybees communicate through dance, but that's just the beginning. They also share information through subtle wing vibrations, chemical signatures on their bodies, and even the way they position themselves within the comb. Each bee carries a library of scents that tell the story of where they've been, what they've found, and what the colony needs. This creates a constantly updating information network where every interaction adds to the collective knowledge base. Ant colonies have perfected what we might call distributed decision-making. When scouts discover multiple food sources, the colony doesn't hold a meeting or vote. Instead, they let chemistry decide. Ants lay stronger pheromone trails to better food sources, and these trails naturally attract more ants, who reinforce the trail further. Poor food sources are abandoned as their weak chemical signals fade. It's a system that automatically optimizes resource allocation without any individual ant understanding the bigger picture. Even more fascinating is how these societies handle information processing under stress. When an ant colony is attacked, the chemical alarm signals don't just alert nearby workers, they create cascading responses that ripple through the entire network, with different castes responding according to their specialized roles. Soldiers mobilize to defend, workers retreat with larvae, and the queen may even relocate. This coordinated response emerges from simple chemical rules, yet it rivals the sophistication of any military command structure. In the deep ocean, bioluminescent communication takes on an almost otherworldly quality. Certain squid species create complex light patterns that function like underwater semaphore flags, conveying information about territory, mating availability, and threat assessment. These displays aren't random flashing. They follow grammatical rules, with specific sequences meaning different things. Some researchers believe these cephalopods possess one of the most sophisticated non-human communication systems on Earth. The vampire squid colonies we discussed earlier have developed what might be called cultural memory. Older individuals seem to pass behavioral patterns to younger ones through demonstration and mimicry. When environmental conditions change, the colony's response isn't just instinctual. It draws on accumulated experience spanning multiple generations. This creates a form of social learning that allows deep-sea communities to adapt to environmental shifts that would otherwise prove catastrophic. Perhaps most intriguingly, these societies demonstrate emergent problem-solving abilities that exceed the cognitive capacity of any individual member. Termite colonies building their climate-controlled mounds don't have architects or engineers, yet they create structures with passive ventilation systems that maintain temperature within a few degrees year-round. The solution emerges from millions of simple interactions. Termites adding soil where they sense excess heat or moisture, removing material where airflow is blocked, and constantly adjusting based on local feedback. This distributed intelligence extends to how these societies manage resources across time. Many ant species maintain elaborate food storage systems with different chambers for different types of provisions, but they don't just store food randomly. The colony optimally distributes resources based on seasonal predictions, with workers allocating more effort to long-term storage when environmental cues suggest scarcity ahead. No individual ant plans for winter, yet the colony as a whole exhibits remarkable foresight. What emerges from studying these systems is a profound lesson about the nature of intelligence itself. We often think of intelligence as residing in individual brains, but these societies suggest that intelligence can be distributed across networks of simple interactions. The colony knows things that no individual member knows. It solves problems that would stump any single organism. It adapts to challenges through collective learning that transcends individual lifespans. These biological networks also reveal principles that human societies are only beginning to understand. The resilience of ant colonies comes not from having backup plans, but from having systems so distributed that local failures don't cascade into systemic collapse. The efficiency of honeybee foraging emerges not from perfect information, but from good enough information shared quickly enough to matter. As we face our own challenges of coordination and cooperation, these ancient societies offer blueprints that have been tested across millions of years. They show us that complex problems don't always require complex solutions. Sometimes, the most sophisticated outcomes emerge from the simplest rules, repeated millions of times across networks of cooperation that span the hidden depths of our world. Hey guys, tonight we begin with something truly extraordinary. In the vast depths of our oceans and the hidden chambers beneath our feet, there exists a world of complex societies that rival our greatest cities, empires that span continents, and civilizations built on cooperation rather than conquest. These are the insect societies and deep-sea communities that have mastered the art of collective intelligence long before humans ever dreamed of skyscrapers or democracy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. What if I told you that the most sophisticated civilizations on Earth aren't built by humans at all? That right beneath your feet, in every forest, every field, every crack in the pavement, there exist cities more organized than Tokyo, supply chains more efficient than Amazon, and communication networks more complex than the internet? These aren't science fiction fantasies. They're the reality of insect societies, ancient empires that have been perfecting the art of collective living for over 100 million years. Consider the humble ant colony. What appears to be simple insects wandering aimlessly is actually a superorganism of staggering complexity. A single colony can contain millions of individuals, each with specialized roles, operating with precision that would make military generals weep with envy. They've mastered agriculture, Cultivating fungus gardens in underground chambers, they've developed supply chains that stretch for miles with dedicated highways and traffic systems. They've even created air conditioning systems in their nests, regulating temperature and humidity with remarkable accuracy. But ants are just the beginning. Venture into a beehive, and you'll discover a society that operates like a living computer. Every bee follows simple rules, yet together they create something extraordinary. Their waggle dance isn't just movement, it's a sophisticated language that communicates distance, direction, and quality of food sources with mathematical precision. When a scout bee returns from discovering nectar, she performs a dance that tells her sisters exactly where to fly, how far to travel, and what they'll find when they arrive. It's GPS navigation encoded in movement, developed millions of years before humans invented maps. Termites, often dismissed as mere pests, are actually master architects and engineers. Their mounds aren't just piles of dirt, they're climate-controlled skyscrapers that maintain perfect temperature and humidity through passive ventilation systems. Some termite structures rise 30 feet above ground while extending even deeper below, housing millions of residents in chambers specifically designed for nurseries, food storage, waste management, and even fungus farms. The ventilation alone is a marvel of engineering, creating air currents that would make modern architects envious. But perhaps most remarkable is how these societies make decisions. No single ant decides where the colony will forage. No queen bee determines which flowers to visit. No termite king plans the architecture of the mound. Instead, these complex behaviors emerge from simple interactions between individuals following basic rules. It's democracy in its purest form, where collective wisdom emerges from individual actions, and the whole becomes infinitely greater than the sum of its parts. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, in the crushing darkness of the abyssal depths, another form of collective intelligence thrives. Here, where sunlight never penetrates and pressure would instantly crush human bodies, communities of creatures have evolved cooperation strategies that defy everything we thought we knew about survival in extreme environments. Bioluminescent organisms create living constellations, communicating through patterns of light that can be seen for miles in the eternal darkness. Tube worms cluster around hydrothermal vents, creating underwater cities powered by chemical energy rather than sunlight. These deep-sea communities challenge our understanding of what's possible in the most hostile environments on Earth. Giant tube worms, some reaching lengths of 8 feet, have no mouths, no stomachs, no digestive systems. Instead, they've formed partnerships with bacteria that live inside their bodies, converting toxic chemicals from volcanic vents into usable energy. It's a form of cooperation so intimate that the boundaries between organisms blur, creating superorganisms that exist nowhere else on our planet. What makes these societies truly extraordinary isn't just their complexity, but their sustainability. While human civilizations rise and fall over centuries, insect societies have maintained their sophisticated systems for millions of years. They've survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless other catastrophes that have wiped out larger, seemingly more powerful species. Their secret isn't individual strength or intelligence, but collective resilience built on cooperation, communication, and adaptation. Each society operates on principles that human civilizations are only beginning to understand. They've mastered resource management without waste, created communication systems without central control, and built sustainable communities that adapt to change rather than resist it. They've proven that intelligence isn't about individual brain power, but about how information flows through networks of simple interactions. Tonight, we'll journey into these hidden worlds, exploring how millions of tiny minds create intelligence that surpasses individual brilliance, how simple rules generate complex behaviors, and how cooperation creates civilizations that have endured longer than human history itself. These aren't just interesting biological curiosities. They're blueprints for understanding collective intelligence, sustainable living, and the power of emergence that could revolutionize how we think about society, technology, and our place in the natural world. Looking at the immense diversity of insect societies and their remarkable achievements, we find ourselves witnessing something that challenges our very understanding of what's possible without central command. From the towering termite cathedrals that regulate temperature through architectural brilliance to the bioluminescent conversations flickering in the deep ocean's darkness, these communities represent evolution's most sophisticated experiments in collective intelligence. But perhaps the most profound lesson from these tiny worlds lies not in their individual accomplishments, but in what they reveal about the nature of cooperation itself. In our human societies, we often assume that complex achievements require complex hierarchies, that innovation demands individual genius, that survival necessitates competition. Yet here, in the microscopic realm of ants and termites, we discover something revolutionary: that the most intricate solutions can emerge from the simplest rules, that the most resilient systems arise from the most distributed networks. Consider the profound implications of this discovery. These societies have solved problems that continue to baffle our most advanced engineers. They've created climate-controlled cities without blueprints, developed communication networks without technology, and established supply chains without contracts. They've done all of this not through the brilliance of any single leader, but through the collective wisdom of millions of individuals following basic principles of cooperation, information sharing, and mutual aid. What makes this even more remarkable is the timescale of their success. While human civilizations rise and fall over millennia, insect societies have maintained their sophisticated social structures for over 100 million years. Their cities have weathered ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and mass extinctions. Their communication systems have evolved to handle challenges we're only beginning to understand. Their architectural achievements have inspired biomimicry research that's revolutionizing how we design everything from skyscrapers to computer networks. These societies operate on principles that seem almost too elegant to be real. No insect knows the master plan, yet master plans emerge. No individual ant understands the architecture of the colony, yet architectural marvels arise. No single termite grasps the complexity of the ventilation system, yet perfect climate control is achieved. This is emergence in its purest form, the whole becoming infinitely greater than the sum of its parts through the magic of collective action. But there's something even deeper at work here, something that speaks to the very heart of what it means to build a sustainable society. These communities have achieved what economists call the tragedy of the commons in reverse. Instead of individuals depleting shared resources for personal gain, we see millions of organisms contributing to shared resources for collective benefit. Instead of competition destroying cooperation, we see competition driving ever more sophisticated forms of collaboration. The fungus gardens tended by leafcutter ants represent perhaps the most elegant solution to food security ever devised. These societies discovered agriculture long before humans existed, developing sustainable farming practices that maintain soil health, prevent disease, and ensure continuous harvests. They've created closed-loop systems where waste becomes nutrients, where diversity strengthens stability, and where the health of the individual is inseparable from the health of the whole. In the deep ocean, we witness communication networks that span vast distances without infrastructure, information systems that adapt in real time to changing conditions, and collaborative hunting strategies that would make human military commanders envious. These societies have solved the fundamental challenges of coordination, resource allocation, and collective decision-making using principles that we're only beginning to understand and appreciate. What's most humbling about these discoveries is how they challenge our assumptions about intelligence itself. We've long believed that complex problem-solving requires complex brains, that innovation demands conscious intention, that wisdom comes from accumulated knowledge. Yet these societies demonstrate that profound intelligence can emerge from simple interactions, that the most elegant solutions can arise without conscious design, and that the deepest wisdom often lies in following principles rather than pursuing goals. The implications for human society are staggering. As we face challenges of unprecedented complexity, from climate change to global cooperation, from technological integration to social resilience, we might do well to study these masters of collective intelligence. Their principles of distributed decision-making, emergent organization, and sustainable resource management offer blueprints for addressing problems that our traditional approaches have failed to solve. These tiny societies remind us that the most powerful force in the universe might not be individual brilliance or technological sophistication, but rather the simple, profound magic of creatures working together toward common goals. In their cities of mud and saliva, in their highways of chemical signals, in their gardens of cultivated fungi, we see reflected not just the past of life on Earth, but perhaps its future as well. As we stand at the threshold of our own evolutionary challenges, these insect societies offer us something precious, proof that cooperation works, that collective intelligence is real, and that even the smallest creatures working together with shared purpose can build worlds of unimaginable beauty and complexity. In their organized chaos, we find not just inspiration, but instruction. In their tiny worlds, we discover not just order, but hope. In the swirling depths of our planet's most remote abysses, where sunlight has never touched stone and pressure could crush submarines like paper cups, extraordinary societies flourish in complete darkness. These are not the familiar kingdoms we know from land or shallow seas, but alien civilizations operating by rules so foreign they seem pulled from science fiction. Tonight we venture into the profound mysteries of deep-sea communities, where creatures have evolved social systems that rival the most sophisticated terrestrial societies, yet remain almost entirely hidden from human understanding. Consider the vampire squid, dwelling in oxygen minimum zones, so hostile that most life cannot survive. Yet these creatures have developed intricate communication networks using bioluminescent displays that pulse and flicker like underwater Morse code. Their social structures appear to be based not on dominance hierarchies, but on cooperative light-sharing protocols that allow entire communities to navigate the eternal darkness together. Each individual becomes a living beacon, contributing to a collective navigation system that guides migrations across vast oceanic territories. But perhaps even more remarkable are the deep-sea tube worm cities that cluster around hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor. These aren't random aggregations, but carefully organized settlements where different species occupy specific neighborhoods based on temperature tolerance and chemical needs. The closer to the scalding vent openings, the more heat-resistant species establish themselves. Further out, in the cooler peripheries, different communities thrive in a carefully orchestrated urban planning system that would impress any metropolitan designer. What's truly fascinating is how these tube worm cities demonstrate resource sharing on a scale that challenges our understanding of cooperation in nature. The bacteria living within the worm's tissues don't just serve individual hosts, they appear to communicate chemically across the colony, sharing information about food availability and environmental changes. When one section of the community detects a shift in water chemistry or the discovery of new food sources, this information propagates through the bacterial network, allowing the entire settlement to adapt collectively. Deep-sea octopuses have evolved perhaps the most sophisticated individual intelligence in these dark realms, but their social behaviors are only beginning to be understood. Recent observations suggest they engage in complex territorial negotiations, using color-changing displays and arm positioning to establish boundaries and communicate intentions. Unlike their shallow water cousins, who are largely solitary, these deep-sea octopuses appear to maintain loose social networks, sharing information about food sources and predator movements through elaborate gestural languages. The engineering capabilities of these deep-sea societies often surpass human understanding. Take the communities that form around whale falls, the massive carcasses of dead whales that sink to the ocean floor. These become the foundation for complex ecosystems that can persist for decades. The succession of species that colonize these underwater oases follows predictable patterns, with each phase preparing the environment for the next community of inhabitants. It's a form of biological urban renewal that transforms death into the foundation for thriving cities. What makes these deep-sea societies particularly remarkable is their resilience in the face of extreme environmental challenges. Pressure that would instantly kill surface dwellers, temperatures that fluctuate between freezing and boiling around hydrothermal vents, and complete absence of photosynthetic energy sources have driven these communities to develop radically different approaches to survival and cooperation. The communication systems alone represent evolutionary marvels. In an environment where sound travels differently and light is either absent or artificially produced, these societies have developed chemical signaling networks of extraordinary sophistication. Deep-sea communities can coordinate behaviors across distances that span multiple ocean trenches using chemical messages that drift on deep-water currents like underwater internet signals. Perhaps most intriguingly, these societies appear to operate on timescales that dwarf terrestrial communities. Some deep sea coral reefs grow for thousands of years, with individual colonies maintaining social structures across centuries. The institutional memory of these communities extends far beyond the lifespan of any individual organism, creating a form of collective consciousness that accumulates knowledge and adaptive strategies across geological time periods. The resource management strategies employed by deep sea societies offer profound lessons for surface dwellers. In an environment where energy is scarce and opportunities for feeding are unpredictable, these communities have mastered the art of sustainable living. Nothing is wasted. Every biological byproduct becomes food for another species. Every death becomes the foundation for new life. It's a circular economy that achieves near perfect efficiency through millions of years of evolutionary refinement. As we continue to explore these hidden worlds, we're discovering that the deep ocean isn't the barren wasteland once imagined, but rather the home to some of the most sophisticated societies on Earth. These communities operate according to principles of cooperation, resource sharing, and collective intelligence that challenge our assumptions about competition and survival. They remind us that intelligence and social organization can emerge under the most unlikely circumstances, and that the greatest mysteries of collective behavior may lie not in the familiar territories above, but in the alien worlds that exist right here on our own planet, hidden beneath miles of dark water. In these profound depths, life has not merely survived, but has flourished, creating societies so complex and alien that they expand our very definition of what civilization can be. And perhaps most remarkably, these communities have achieved something that surface societies still struggle with: the ability to thrive sustainably in harmony with their environment for millions of years, proving that cooperation and collective intelligence can triumph even in the most challenging conditions our planet can offer. As we reach the end of our journey through these tiny civilizations, we find ourselves faced with a profound truth that echoes across time and space. From the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountain peaks, from ancient seas to modern laboratories, these microscopic societies have been quietly orchestrating the symphony of life itself. The lessons they offer us are both humbling and inspiring. In their world, there are no kings or emperors, no armies or conquests. Yet their achievements dwarf our greatest architectural marvels. They have built cities that float in 3 dimensions, engineered structures that repair themselves, and created communication networks that span vast distances without a single wire or satellite. Their democracy is pure and immediate. Every decision emerges from collective intelligence. Every action serves the greater good. They have solved problems of resource allocation, waste management, and sustainable growth that we still struggle with today. Their cities breathe, adapt, and evolve in real time, responding to changes with a flexibility that makes our smartest technologies seem rigid and clumsy. But perhaps most remarkably, they have done all of this while maintaining perfect balance with their environment. They take only what they need, waste nothing, and leave their world more vibrant and diverse than they found it. They have been practicing circular economy for hundreds of millions of years, long before we even had words for such concepts. As we zoom back out from this hidden universe, as we return our attention to our own human scale, we carry with us new eyes. The next time you walk through a forest, Remember the vast networks pulsing beneath your feet. When you stand beside the ocean, think of the glowing cities that dance in its depths. When you breathe, consider the ancient partnerships between oxygen and life that make each breath possible. These tiny worlds remind us that intelligence takes many forms, that civilization can emerge from cooperation rather than competition, and that the most profound solutions often come from the smallest places. They teach us that complexity can arise from simplicity, that order can emerge from apparent chaos, and that the most powerful technologies are often invisible to the naked eye. In our age of division and environmental crisis, these microscopic societies offer us blueprints for a different way of being. They show us what's possible when individual success is inseparable from collective flourishing, when growth serves life rather than consuming it, when intelligence is distributed rather than concentrated. The universe of the very small continues to pulse around us, above us, within us, carrying on conversations we're only beginning to understand, solving problems we're only starting to recognize, building futures we can barely imagine. They have been here since the beginning, and they will be here long after we're gone, quietly maintaining the delicate balance that makes all life possible. So the next time you find yourself overwhelmed by the complexity of our human world, by the challenges that seem too big to solve, remember these tiny architects of tomorrow. In their microscopic wisdom lies perhaps our greatest hope, a reminder that the most powerful forces in the universe often work in whispers rather than shouts, in cooperation rather than conflict, in harmony rather than discord. The Slumber Lab has shown us many worlds tonight, but none more wondrous than this one, where the smallest citizens are the greatest teachers, where the invisible hands shape the visible world, and where order emerges naturally from the beautiful chaos of countless tiny lives working together toward a common dream. In the end, we are not so different from these microscopic societies. We too are part of something larger than ourselves, interconnected in ways we're only beginning to understand. Perhaps by learning from these masters of cooperation and sustainability, we can build our own societies that flourish in harmony with the world around us. After all, we share the same planet, the same elements, the same fundamental desire to create something beautiful and lasting in the brief time we have. The smallest worlds have the largest lessons, and those lessons are still being written, one tiny life at a time, in the endless, elegant script of existence itself.